Hey, welcome to Hack and Build. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're in my home studio and I want to show you this really cool roll-away cart and equipment rack and work surface that I put together. It's a custom build and I built it because I couldn't find anything off the shelf that did what I wanted. The other cool thing about it is it matches my existing desk pretty much perfectly. We'll talk about the build a little bit, the hows and whys I did it, and then I'll show you some of the cool tricks that I picked up along the way, as well as some ideas that I used for wiring this thing up and getting wires out of the way so that everything's really neat inside here. This is being used for electronic synthesizers and equipment, but something like this I think would work very well for like at a computer equipment cart where you may have a printer, a router, or some other peripherals that you want to have all hooked up and you don't have cords all over the place. So without any further ado, let's hack and build. Here we are at the top of the unit and I'm just going to take you through real quickly. We'll take a look at the top and then the front of it, and then we'll get into the color matching stuff and some of the construction details. So the main purpose of this thing is to be able to have a work surface that slides underneath my desk, and then also to hold my rack mount synthesizer gear. So we've got a few different rack mount synthesizers in here, and we have my mixer and then the rack mount power strip, which is that thing that I mentioned that helps get the cords out of the way. So instead of having 4 cords, 5 cords, you've only got 1, so that neatens things up in the back quite a bit. And if we come here and look at the top, I'll speak briefly about the color matching. So here's the existing desk. Here's the add-on. I think the colors look great. And all I did was I had them match the color of the desk at the hardware store. So I used stain for this, and I had them match the color of the desk to the top of this. And what they were able to do is take the chip that I provided and come up with a pretty close match. Now they told me, hey, go home and try it out on a piece of wood and come back if you don't like the way it looks. I don't remember the outcome of that. I know that I did do some testing. I don't remember if I brought it back in. It might have been good the first try, but the color of the finish will definitely contribute to the overall color. So I used polyurethane on this to seal everything in. So that is definitely a factor. So how I got the swatches is I simply contacted the manufacturer of the desk, and this is just Bush Commercial Office Furniture, and they sent me a swatch for the top and then a swatch for the paint color as well. And then talking about the paint color, I just got the paint from Sherwin-Williams because that's where I usually get my paint. I like their paint. But anyway, took that into the paint store, and I'm sure everybody's had paint colors matched before. But this came out pretty close. I actually think that the stain looks closer than the paint, but all told, like when you put this next to this, it really looks like it goes together, and that's the most important thing. Well, let's dig into some of the construction details around front. So this top here, like I said, it's plywood. I use the same plywood that I made this box out of, and then some edge banding around the edge. So that's like maple or birch edge banding, and I believe this is birch plywood. And then the box itself is just used very simple cabinetry. It's Kreg pocket joinery, and then for the casters, there are those rollerblade wheels so they don't mess up the floor, and you don't need one of these mats. And I don't really like these mats because dirt still gets under here. I probably had this mat here for like 15 years, and eventually the dirt works its way underneath and it wears the finish off of the floor. Anyway, kind of a digression there, but let's talk about the rack mount hardware. So if you wanted to do a rack like this, and the really only reason to use the rack size is if you have rack equipment to mount in there, or you want to use one of these power strips. And you've got your rack rails that run the length, and I think I spent, I don't know, $20 on the rails and all the screws that you need to put everything together. And those screws would not come with an equipment rack if you decided to buy one off the shelf. But that's essentially the construction. Very simple cabinetry, match the stain, match the paint, does exactly what I need. The work surface is pretty nice, being able to just roll underneath, and there's just enough space underneath the desk so everything fits. Another thing that you could do is if you had some other kind of project that you just wanted to get away, to put away, a rollout cart like this would be very nice. And I don't know why the office furniture vendors don't offer something like this, but they don't, and that's why I had to build it. And here's a quick rundown of all the materials I used on the project. I used a sheet of 4x8 plywood for the top and the sides. There's the rack hardware that I used. The 4 casters from Harbor Freight. The pocket screws that I used to put the whole thing in together. And then the stain and the paint. Oh, and the edge banding. Let's not forget the edge banding. And that's pretty much it. Simple project. So a lot of times after you build something, there's things that you would change right away. I've been using this thing for a few years now, and it's one of the few instances where there's very little I change about this build. The size is perfect for me. It fits nicely underneath my desk, and I think one of the things that I learned on this about being able to match stain to an existing piece of wood is going to come in really handy for future projects. If I ever need to build another piece of custom furniture for this room, I'll be able to use that approach again. And I do still have some leftover materials from this, so even though the build maybe cost me a little bit more than buying something off the shelf, I've got some leftover paint and I've got some leftover stain. So the next time I go to do another custom thing, maybe I will build that printer cart. It won't cost me as much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. As always, stay tuned for more hacks and builds, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.